All right, welcome back. It seems like everyone is on social media. And of course, everyone has a hot sports take opinion, life take opinion, and sometimes, well, it's just not right. Joining us now from Dallas is attorney Bill Richardson to talk about social media and perhaps do people have any legal rights to control what is said online? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's get right into it. Let's talk about employment. Does any employer have the right to go to an employee if something is posted up online that's derogatory either towards the industry they work in, their own employer, or just demeaning in general? Does the employer have the right to control what their employees put on social media?
So there's a lot of context involved with that. Sometimes if you've got lower level employees versus executives, the standards are a little different. But the long and short of it is that in certain contexts, if someone wants to talk about what they're paid or they want to talk about other things regarding their employment, federal law protects them to talk about that. But if they're going to talk about other things such as demeaning the company or demeaning the industry or maybe even talking about the company's clients, then there's going to be some contractual rights that an employer has to be able to say, this is not right. We can fire you if there's an at-will state with or without cause, and to make that kind of request. A lot of it comes down to the practical nature of what people are saying and using some of that leverage as an employer to get them to take that type of language down.
Because don't you think in a lot of employee handbooks it says somewhere that you've got to use, I guess, a moral judgment, a moral clause that you can't go out and post a half-naked selfie or something like that that might be not so appropriate for our culture?
Certainly. And what that's going to do is allow the company to separate with the employee a little bit easier. So, for example, if an executive gets caught in a compromising situation while on a work trip and maybe someone snaps a photo of it or they accidentally share some photos that they shouldn't have shared, that'll give the employer some right to be able to separate from them and no longer have that person tarnishing their name.
All right, Bill, let's switch over to Yelp. It seems like if you go on Yelp, you see the good, you see the bad. But what if you're a business owner and someone has gone onto Yelp and falsely accused you of something or really dragged you into something that just did not happen only to bring you down, and yet it could be a competitor doing this? Do you have any legal right to go after them as well?
So there are some legal rights. The Constitution, both at the state and federal level, in a lot of states themselves, have laws against defamation. If you were saying something false about someone and it causes them harm, particularly in their profession or job, you do have a cause of action. Now, the balance of that, however, is two different things. One, there is the Consumer Review Fairness Act, which was passed into federal law, that says that there are limitations on what you can tell customers to not say. So, for example, through a non-disparagement agreement or a confidentiality agreement, they have to be openly negotiated. In addition, there are some procedural methods that the states employ. In 29 different states, they have anti-SLAPP statutes, which allow someone who is accused of defamation, so the person reviewing the business sues, it allows them to more quickly move to a resolution of the case without having to go all the way through the trial itself. So businesses are a little more, have their hands tied a little bit more behind their back. But if a consumer is out there making false statements, there's at the very least going to be a good claim for defamation, especially as it relates to those businesses, whether on a review site or otherwise.
Okay, Bill, let's go back to social media real quick. There's a term called shadow banning, and that might be
Yes, sir.
the way that social media companies will suppress your presence on social media. A, does that legitimately exist? And B, does the user have any recourse towards that social media platform?
So there's the first part of that question is it actually happening? And without a doubt, depending on your definition of shadow ban, are platforms using behind the scenes algorithms or changes to their algorithms to make some voices louder on the platform and some voices quieter? There's no question. There have been numerous companies, whether it's at Facebook or others, that have had employees say, we are actually doing this behind the scenes for certain viewpoints that we don't like. It's tended to go down a little bit as people have shed light on it, but it certainly is still happening, whether suppressing views or just are you appearing in the news feed, for example, on Facebook. And then the other issue is whether you can do anything about it. For the vast majority of consumers, that long terms of service that you signed, you may not even remember that you checked the box when you downloaded an app or registered for an account. They tend to limit the ability you have to be able to go after these types of companies. But the long and short of it is that there are states, including California, that have deceptive trade actions in statute that allow you to go and say, hey, I signed up for this platform, or I spent money on this platform thinking that it was open and that I wouldn't be shadow banned. And because you're not doing that, I want to take you to court. And there are a variety of different lawsuits out there based on that.
There you go. Last question for you. When it comes to YouTube, what can be seemed inappropriate and what's appropriate? We've seen that happen particularly in a lot of conservative based platforms where their videos have been suppressed. So what's your thought on that?
There's a lot of questions about companies that are based in California and other parts of the country that are essentially saying these are our views about what's appropriate on a platform or not. And a lot of platforms like YouTube began as ones where it's very wide open. Unless you were saying something false or inciting violence, you were pretty much going to be able to put it on there, whether it's a cat video or a political video. Under a lot of pressure, these platforms have decided to increase every year the restrictions on what is allowed. And unfortunately, a lot of those guidelines are really unclear as to what's considered shocking content or harassing behavior, especially when it comes to public figures. So the long and short of it is your first place to go is to be able to look at the guidelines that those websites actually have. They have very long, detailed guidelines, following those the best you can, but also knowing that when you're playing in their sandbox, there's a lot of rules that they simply will not and are not required to explain at this point to the consumer.
Absolutely. Bill Richmond, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
There you go. We'll be right back. Stick around.